This is Creepy, a podcast dedicated to sharing the most famous, chilling, and disturbing creepypastas and urban legends in the world. Whether these stories truly happened or are simply fabrications is for you to decide. These stories may contain graphic depictions of violence and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Creepy presents I Never Should Have Come to the Office Christmas Party. Written by Kyle Harrison. I was there to flirt with Haley Charters, a new temp from accounting that had flown in from Seattle only a few weeks back, and she didn't even show. To be honest, the moment I realized that, I felt like trying to find a fire exit and leave. The entire thing just struck me as unusually dull and dry. Only about 13 people were in attendance, probably all here to snatch a few free finger foods before attending a real Christmas party with real friends. Even the music in the room was slow and boring, as though whoever created the event was just trying to throw something at the last minute. Given the way management handles all the other debacles around here, I wasn't going to put it past them to have screwed this up too. Still, it felt rude to just duck and run, especially since a few coworkers had already spotted me and made small talk. I figured the least I could do would be stick around for their gift exchange and then make an exit while they'll open presents. This year's theme was apparently Secret Santa, and just in case you aren't familiar with the concept, I'll explain how it works. First, there's a sign-up sheet where people put their names down to say that they're interested in giving someone else a present. The key here is that the other party doesn't know who the gift is coming from until they receive it. And then the same process occurs over and over until everyone gets a random person assigned to them. The gimmick was probably designed with more commercialism in mind, but the sentiment of trying to bond with people that are basically strangers is a good one, I guess. Not that anyone here would ever really try to do that. I can tell from the non-interested, bland expressions of all my coworkers that the only thing they were thinking about was how long they were stuck here. Bill, a manager from marketing, used a fork against a wine glass to get everyone's attention as I eyed the buffet. Even the food they served was cheap. An example of how little the higher-ups thought of us even during the holidays. He asked to get everyone's attention, and I set my plate down, realizing he was probably going to give a very long and boring speech about how great we all were and such. I didn't want to look like I was stuffing my face, even though I wished I was. Then he began to rant about all the amazing growth our company had despite setbacks, including new employees and a new branch opening up. Stuff that honestly none of us cared about. It felt like it was going to last forever. But thankfully, an older woman from research spoke up and complained that she had to get home to her kids, so he wrapped up the speech rather quickly. I have no idea if that was true or not, but I was certainly thankful she'd pulled that out of her hat, so to speak. Bill quickly sat down, and the organizer of the event, a middle-aged woman named Dorothy, told everyone it was time to exchange gifts. I hadn't really paid much attention to the stack of presents across the room, but now that she was telling all of us, I realized it actually seemed like there were quite a few large wrapped items there. I couldn't even imagine actually spending a lot of money on any of these people. And besides, I was sure that the rules had specified not to spend over $10 in order to make gifts around the same equal value. Someone hadn't been listening. I speculated for a moment whether that meant that two of the people in the room were having a scandalous affair, even as gifts began to be opened. Then, as everyone finished getting their items, I noticed there was one small box still left on the table. Someone must not have shown up, I realized. I reached for it, pretending that I belonged there too, and then shuffled to the back edge of the room, slowly unwrapping the bow. I had to admit that even though I thought the whole thing was silly, I was impressed with how whoever had been the Secret Santa had gone all out for the presentation. As I took the top off, though, I felt like I was a balloon having the air squeezed out of me. There's only a small monogram letter inside. To Philip, from your Secret Santa. Philip worked over in shipping and receiving, and as I opened the letter, I wondered if maybe all he had gotten was a dinky gift card to some second-hand shop. Instead, I was surprised to see it was a handwritten note. What it had to say made me feel uncomfortable. "Better watch out," it read. "You've been placed on the naughty list this year." What did that mean? I paused and looked up towards the others in the room, realizing that the others had strange notes, everyone looking at one another in confusion. I heard a few people muttering under their breath something was wrong as the last person started opening their package. The next thing I knew, I was on the floor. What happened must have been an explosion of some kind. I remember seeing a flash come out of the box and a loud boom that rocked the entire room. Everyone flew back and I felt my body hit the wall as the shaking stopped and fire alarms doused the unexpected blaze. The entire floor was chaotic. My ears wouldn't stop ringing as I tried to get a sense of what had happened. There were sparks flying and shooting from broken fluorescent lights and debris from the party and office equipment strewn about everywhere. Smoke kept me from seeing who else had made it through the bomb unscathed, but amid the clatter and noise, I heard a scream. As the room became easier to see, I realized the reason for their shrieks was because of what had happened to the unfortunate soul that opened the last gift. All that remained of their body was a scorched heap of tissue and bones. In fact, as I stood there, I realized part of their entrails had scattered onto me. Immediately, I rushed toward the exit. Another coworker ran for the fire alarm, but it didn't do any good. The system was shut off and the door was jammed. I tried the elevator next, only to stop as I heard blaring static over the old intercom system. All of us stopped what we were doing as strange, sinister, and jolly laughter filled the air.
"Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas,"
the voice said. I felt my stomach drop as I realized the elevator wasn't working, and I was realizing what was happening. We were trapped here.
"Gather around, children, so Santa can tell you what the holidays have in store for you,"
A disturbing, disjointed voice ordered. Reluctantly, I joined the others in a small crowd as we stood at the edge of the fire that was slowly dying near the center of the room.
"Now, have you been good boys and girls?"
The voice cackled.
"I think by the end of the night we will know who's been naughty and who's been nice."
Then a projector screen slid down from the front of the boardroom nearby, showing an image of the now deceased man that had been destroyed.
"This man slept with several co-workers that weren't his wife. How very naughty. He will get nothing but coal this year,"
Our captor announced.
"Santa has been watching you all year round. I made a list and I checked it twice. I know who's been naughty or nice. Tonight I expect all of you to get drunk on eggnog and accept your fate."
A timer replaced the man's image, and as it began to count down, the strange voice explained,
"Our next carol will begin in exactly 15 minutes. Happy holidays, everyone."
As the static ended, all of us looked at each other trying to comprehend what had just happened. One woman was insisting that she was a good person and she didn't belong here. Others were saying the same. Bill was trying his best to be the voice of reason, telling everyone to calm down. Several others were trying to call the police, but no one had reception. Even the internet had abruptly shut down. We were effectively trapped. Maybe there was a way to escape, I thought as I looked towards the air vents. I made the suggestion and several of the other guys helped me to push a large desk over to the vent. Then I surveyed the group and tried to figure out who might be small enough to crawl through. Pointing towards a petite woman, I told her she'd have to be the lucky one. She timidly looked at the hole as one of the maintenance men began to unscrew the metallic cover. All of us huddled together to help her climb in. It was a bit of a mess to get her up, but she finally managed to squeeze into the tight hole. All of us sat anxiously in the middle of the room and waited to see what would happen. No one dared to make a peep as the woman struggled to push her body through the tight space. Then, just as she crossed from the office we were trapped in, we heard this cry of pain and the lights flickered. there was this ominous buzzing from the air vent, and we heard a thud, and all of us got silent. We waited another moment to see if she was all right, but there was no response. Instead, our demented captor came back on the intercom with another jolly and sinister message for all of us.
Looks like someone was getting greedy and trying to sneak out of the North Pole. Let's not try that again, shall we? If you were good little children, Santa will bring you lots of toys.
As the static died again, I looked toward the vent and saw bodily fluids drip towards the carpet, making me want to puke. So much for a chance to get out that way, I thought sourly as we all reconvened in the middle of the debris. It was easy to say that the carefree and lackadaisical attitude which had permeated the room was now replaced with feelings of apprehension and uncertainty. Then one of the employees that worked directly on this floor made the comment that maybe the saboteur was right here among us, and I could see that everyone was looking at one another suspiciously. I tried to get everyone to settle down before accusations began to fly, and immediately it was discovered that the petite woman that had crawled into the vent might have been sleeping with the first man that died. Of course, I knew there was really no way to verify any of this, but I did quickly point out that I wasn't supposed to be here. Maybe we should stop pointing fingers at each other and instead focus on trying to find a way out of here, I told them. Bill and a few of the older managers were looking toward the long glass pane windows that lined up the south edge of the floor. During the impact of the bomb, several of the thick windows had cracked, but surprisingly, none of them had broken. Bill made the suggestion that we might be able to cascade down the side of the building if we had the proper equipment. It was safe to say that no one thought that was a good idea, but we changed our tune 10 minutes later when we heard from our mysterious Secret Santa again. This time, the sound system played grainy old Christmas music, the kind that easily gets stuck in your head. Next, we saw a slideshow of the woman that had died in the air vent. As if to remind us of her unfortunate passing, the air condition activated so we could smell her newly rotting corpse. I felt the need to throw up again, even as the dangerous psychopath holding us hostage made an announcement.
It's time to find out who gets to go home early for being such a good sport. Will the following caroling co-workers please step forward?
It listed off 4 names, including Mr. Bill, and they were told to stand by the elevator and wait for more instructions. I told them I suspected it was a trap. They were so eager to get out that no one was listening to me. All of us watched as a foursome got to the elevator and the doors magically opened. Then a few of the others still stuck here began to object and push for the door. Immediately, a loud blaring alarm went off and the evil Santa warned us to stand back.
Only going to the North Pole for good boys and girls. Any naughty children will still be punished.
I managed to scramble to the front and hold back 2 of the men as I shouted to Bill to hurry and get on the elevator. One of the women tossed her phone and shouted, "As soon as you get out, call for help!" Then the group left as the elevator doors closed and we watched the digital numbers descend to the ground floor. The rest of us were on edge for the next good 10 minutes. The men I had stopped from shoving their way into the elevator regarded me with extra suspicion. It was easy to assume that I must have had a role to play in this insanity since no harm had come to me. Me and another young man were trying to remind everyone all we had to do now was wait. Surely Bill and the others would be able to find help and then we'd be out of here in no time. But after about half an hour, that sense of reassurance began to dwindle. Especially because one of the women checked the elevator and made a startling report. It had never made it to the ground floor, meaning our co-workers that had attempted to leave were now trapped somewhere in a confined space. Almost as if on cue, once she made the revelation, more jolly music came over the speakers, and our mysterious kidnapper had a new announcement to share.
The holidays are always full of surprises, aren't they? One day you think you're on cloud 9, and the next you might be in the gutter.
The projection screen came down and immediately a grainy image of the foursome that had left came into view. They were stuck just like we'd assumed, bickering and trying to avoid losing their hope as they waited in the elevator somewhere below.
Our group of would-be Santa helpers have actually been stealing from the company for over the past 6 months. How shameful. I'm sure you would all agree that only those good elves get to help with the toys in the workshop, so they won't be home for the holidays.
I watched in abject horror at what happened next. The roof of the elevator opened up, and little sprinklers came out of the hidden alcoves, a trap built by our maniacal captor. And spewing out of those spouts was what looked like acid. Even though there was no sound on the video feed, I knew what sort of pain those people were enduring. They slammed their fists against the walls and tried to claw to the roof for help. The acid was burning their skin, hitting their eyes and making their bodies writhe with pain. I held a hand over my mouth and tried to avoid screaming to myself at the awful display. Then the feed went black, and the Secret Santa made the next proclamation.
No holiday would be complete without a sleigh ride. So stay tuned to see who gets to go for a magical journey with Santa.
As soon as the awful display came to an end, I got to work on Bill's plan to scale down the side of the building. I wasn't about to wait to see if I was next on the chopping block for this madness. Grabbing an office chair, I slammed it against the thick windows, trying to break it apart, but it did no good. A woman helped me, and we shoved a desk toward the edge, pushing together to shove it through one of the larger cracks. This time, the combined weight caused the window to give way, and we tumbled onto the carpeted floor as the equipment flew to the ground below. I stared down at the busy metropolitan streets, realizing that none of the people below probably even had a clue about what was happening up here. I silently wondered if they would even care, or simply go about their business. But that was the cynical part of my brain kicking in as I turned back to the crowd and gave orders to tie together Ethernet cables for rope. We gathered as many bundles as we could, binding them back and forth tightly against one another until at last they made a good taut rope. Just to be fair, I suggested we draw straws to see who would climb down. It would prevent any further arguments, I said. As luck would have it, I drew the short straw. The others made sure the makeshift bungee cord was around my waist and then used one of the larger pylons in the office to act as a base point for me to rappel off. I looked toward the precipitous gap between me and the lower floor and felt dizzy, realizing I wasn't quite ready to do this. It'd mean certain death if I'd miscalculated. But I couldn't hesitate now. I closed my eyes as I leaned over the edge and then made the first leap of faith. My feet hit the glass window hard, and I told myself it'd only be perhaps 10 to 15 feet to reach the next floor. It'd be like walking across a room, I thought as I slid down and felt the sharp winds hit me. As I reached the next floor, I pressed my body against the window and started to tap on it in hopes of getting someone's attention. The floor was dark. I shouldn't have been surprised. If it hadn't been for this office party, I would have been off today too. Most people were. It suddenly occurred to me that there might not be anyone in the building besides us. I shouted to the group above to send something down that I could use to break the window. A gust of air hit me again, and I nearly lost my footing as they offered a small desktop computer. "Hurry, the Secret Santa just came back on the screen and I think they realized you're gone," one man shouted to me. Carefully, I smashed the computer against the window just enough to shatter it and give me an opportunity to get through the hole. Once I was in, I released the Ethernet cable and it fell to the floor. As I stood there in the darkness, I felt an unease take over my body. This floor wasn't abandoned, I realized as the automatic lighting detected my movement. The floor was littered with employees that had been asphyxiated somehow, all dead from some toxins released in the air. At least 20 people were dead, I discovered. And as the lights came on while I walked across the room, I realized that this also was likely the Secret Santa's control room. A bunch of monitors were set up in the center monitoring different floors where others were trapped, controlling everything to prevent anyone from escaping. So how come I've made it this far? Just as the thought crossed my mind, I turned and saw a bearded costume Santa slam me in the face with a bag of toys. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair by a candy cane rope and dressed as an elf. I immediately felt violated as I tried to squirm out of the bonds, and I heard the costume killer laugh from across the room. "Finally up and about, are you? Well, good. I wanted you to wake up and see the end results of this Merry Christmas." I suddenly realized that they'd planned this to take place right before the holiday on purpose, when most people were out with their families. And they soon explained why. "None of you have any decency in your heart. No spirit of Christmas. You waste your time here in this office while it sucks the joy away. You have forgotten the true meaning of the holiday." Even this close, I couldn't make out for sure who the disguised killer was. But I couldn't deny they were wrong. This company had truly destroyed any chance I had of enjoying a Christmas with my family. "But that doesn't make what you're doing right," I argued. They pointed towards the monitors and made their point abundantly clear as they got on the intercom.
It's time at last for our holiday season to come to an end. All of you will find a nearby desk drawer where Santa delivered your gifts to. Use them to get out once and for all.
I watched on the large monitors as my coworkers did as instructed. All of them finding sharp objects, including hatchets and knives, to fight each other. Each one wrapped with a bow that had another coworker's name on it.
Whoever is left standing in the next 10 minutes will get to go free. And if any of you refuse to cooperate, well, let's just say it will be a very cold Christmas for all of you.
The Santa chuckled. The men and women looked at each other with desperation and terror. Either they killed one another, or the secret Santa would end it all. He made another bellow of jolly laughter as he kept the feud going and added, "I will let you watch the show. I have to deliver toys elsewhere." I watched as the fat man ran towards the elevator and disappeared from sight. Then I desperately worked to break my bonds, watching as my coworkers turned on one another. Blood was covering the carpeted floor. Several of my coworkers were already dead. The rest were severely wounded. I managed to loosen my ropes just a minute before the timer ended, and I grabbed the microphone that the secret Santa had used.
Please stop! The killer's already left, you can stop!
To my horror, though, they didn't listen. And I watched until only 4 men were left in the carnage, and the power returned, and another Christmas melody played. The killer had made their way out, and now we were left with guilt and a bloody nightmare to clean up. Then to top it off, I watched as the videos were erased and the evidence scrubbed of any audio announcements. The proof that the Santa killer had even been there was gone for good. "Let's have a white, clean Christmas," a final message read across the screen in bright red and green as authorities rushed in and arrested the survivors. I was the only one that was allowed to walk out scot-free, because I wasn't even supposed to be there. But I haven't been able to face work since, and I can't even sleep without hearing that awful jolly laughter. The nightmare before Christmas is over, but the ghosts of this Christmas will haunt me forever.